Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to my video. Before I move on, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Azimam Kashfan, and in this video, I would like to talk about what are the differences between a dialect, sociolect, and an idiolect. So, without further ado, let's head into the first topic. So, my first topic is what is a dialect? A dialect is a variety of spoken language in a particular geographical area or a particular group of people. A dialect usually affects the factors in vocabulary, pronunciations, and grammar. Usually a dialect is a form that allows people to express and how they communicate between one another. For instance, I go to the UK as an Indonesian, and in there I speak Indonesian English, which is quite different from the UK English. So they speak UK English and I spoke Indonesian English. So in that way, we exchange our way of communication, and this is how we show dialect. Usually, this dialect mostly takes place in like a social area group. For instance, a class is a great example. A trip abroad is a very good example too, and many more. So that's a short explanation of what is a dialect. And next is of course, there are types of dialects. First is the social dialect. Second is a regional dialect, and third is ethnic dialect. So a social dialect is are simply linguistics that are distinguished within a social group or maybe in a group of society, as I mentioned before. And in a regional dialect, it is not a distinct language, but moreover to the variety of language spoken in a particular country. Okay, so a social and a regional defers itself as a social is in one place, maybe like a classroom, and the other is in a country. And last is what is ethnic dialect. An ethnic dialect is a dialect which is distinct from the spoken language which by members of a particular ethnic group. So it is in the race form. Yeah, respect for the ethnic itself. Second of all, I want to talk what is a social dialect. A social dialect is a variety of language that looks upon the background, social background, and the geographical background of an individual. The factors that could affect this social dialect is very basic are age, gender, occupation, and status. What I mean by status, it could be economic status, family status, and so on. In a social dialect, there are levels of communication. What I mean by that is that not all of them refer to as the same level. So there's the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. We start from the lower class. For example, in Africa, many people don't have the perfect education, including children, which when they grew up, it could outcome their language and how they communicate in English. And also, in middle class is how average people speak, and how, like for example, speaking to a family member, or maybe speaking to a friend with the average way of English speaking rule. And maybe the top is the upper class is when, let's say, how high people or let's say wealthy people talk. You know, there's like the intelligence combining with reality, and there's a lot of things that's getting mixed up between these three levels. So each levels are different, and also it could outcome a way how an individual speak. So, for example, in a social group, there are, let's say, if I owe my friend money, that's not money, not a money, of course, it's some money, and let's say my friend asked me, "Hey man, you got some money with you?" And I replied with, "I'm sorry, I don't have money, or I don't have cash with me." Other would say differently, which is, let's say, "Hey, you got some money with you?" I'm like, "Man, I'm sorry, man, I'm out of cash. I got zero bills in my pocket." That is a way of a socialite. Of course, there are types of socialite that a language could be outcomed. First of all, is the vernaculars, or more often to the other antonym is the slang, right? This vernaculars are mostly spoken in a group or family member, which does not affect a life of profession. For instance, I spoke with this girl regularly, like, a friend to a friend, a pal to a pal, a mom to a dad, a son to a father. That could not affect the real life of, maybe a profession. So it's like a simple, easy way of speaking. And also, as similar to slang, it does not, it violates a lot of rules. If it is spoken formally, but instead it's not formal and it is okay, I think that's variety of speech, that people have ways of communicating with one another. I'd like to move on to the next. And the next is, we want to talk about what is an idiolect. So an idiolect is how individuals use language differently. This means it obviously depends on the region and where he's actually from. Therefore, it's like a dialect mixed with a sociolect. Then comes the idiolect. I'm just kidding. That's not what we're talking about. So an idiolect is almost similar to a dialect, of course, but this is more in how an individual acts up in a way of communication in English. Usually, a idiolect depends how unique these individuals phrase and rephrase words. For instance, I've heard former President George W. Bush said before, which is incorrect. Speaking, it's supposed to be before, but it's before. But nonetheless, it sounded similar, and this is why idiolects are considered to be unique, and how we, as a human being, as the creature of God, think logically, think intelligently, think smart. And that is one of the examples of how we use, well, basically how dialect really shows us. So instead of saying, "Hey, where are you going?" Say, "Hey, where you heading, man?" It's a slang, but it's how we say it. Okay? I bet you get it. You'll get it soon if you don't. Yeah, that is a part of an idiolect. And last but not least is how could we differentiate between American English and British English? Generally, we would know English is English, right? English is English. But because we live in different part of worlds where there are different parts, different ways of communicating with English as a first language, right? Of course, we know American English from medias, music, and of course maybe the most infamous one, Hollywood, where there's a lot of American English. Yeah. And there's British English, which is way how they communicate is with the mimic of intelligence, you know? Like there's a nice part of it. There's the smooth literacy behind British English, which I personally love British English. You know, it's like, it's so intelligent listening to British English, but still, it's English, you know? And how could we differentiate them? So first of all, we know there are different words in British and American English. There are different types of spellings with British and American English. And of course there are different types of pronunciations with British and American English. So one of the words that mostly caught my eye is, this is as an example, of course, is football. You know, football. I love football. I play football. It's a sport, amazing sport. But in America, they call them soccer, which is different, football and soccer, because football there is another type of sport, and football here is the world kind of sport. So that's the first differentiation between American and British English. Second of all, is notice that every word in the British English usually goes to different endings. I don't mean different endings like the positions are different. In British English, the R is spelled behind the last letter. For example, center. Alright, center in British English, CENTRE. But in American English, it is CENTER. You will notice that because I think it is the way how they spell it, I guess. And there's another example, for example, different spelling without the R, or with the R, is color. Alright? As you can see, color in both languages, in both accents sounded the same. But the spelling are quite different. In color, say in the British English or the UK English, it is spelled COLOUR. Alright, there's a U in it. But in the American English, there isn't any U, which is COLOR. I think that is how we could differentiate between American English and spoken English. Of course, I want to listen to them more, what could differentiate in further details. So let's have a jump to UK maybe, and after the UK we hit the US. I mean, fly to US, not hit the US. Okay, that's a slang. I think that's all I could say for my video. Oh yeah, last but not least, in the UK English, they prefer to have present perfect tense. So the verbs are different, the subject is different, the formula of English is different. So, for example, the Britons, you will say, kept, dreamt, burned, learned. But in the American or the regular English, it is keep, dreamed, burned, learned. So you'll notice that because it's a different way of communicating. But nonetheless, they are both English. They both sounded the same. We both use them, but personally, I use American English, but I love British English, which kind of hit me the spot where I don't know which one to decide. So yeah, I think this is the my video for today. Thank you guys. Okay, thank you for anyone who's watching this, and I hope to see you in my next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.